The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains as I bounced out of bed, my heart racing with anticipation. Today wasn't just any day. It was the day of our very first family camping trip. I could hardly contain my excitement as I peeked into the kitchen to see Mark quietly sipping his coffee, scrolling through his phone. "Morning," I chirped, trying to coax a smile from him. He nodded and muttered a quiet morning back, but his expression seemed distant. I told myself it was nerves. Maybe he wasn't used to roughing it outdoors. And that was perfectly normal. Jake, on the other hand, was pure energy. At barely 12, he had been counting down the days for weeks, imagining all the adventures that awaited him. "Mom, Dad, did you pack the marshmallows? And the chocolate? We need s'mores tonight," he shouted, practically vibrating with excitement. I laughed and reminded him that we had everything packed, from tents to sleeping bags, and even a small cooler stocked with sandwiches and snacks for the trip. By mid-morning, the car was packed to the brim. Every corner was filled with gear, leaving barely enough room for the three of us to sit comfortably. We set off, the tires crunching over the gravel driveway, leaving the familiar streets behind as we drove toward the mountains. The radio played a mix of our favorite songs, and for a brief moment, it felt like everything was perfect, a snapshot of a happy family. Heading into adventure, I kept glancing at Mark, hoping to see that spark of excitement I felt in my own chest. But his gaze remained distant, staring at the road ahead or occasionally at his phone. We laughed at Jake's exaggerated fears about bears and imagined wildlife, and even Mark chuckled a few times, though I noticed it didn't reach his eyes. The drive was long, winding through tall trees and past glistening rivers, but the scenery only added to my excitement. When we finally reached the campsite, the air was crisp and smelled of pine and fresh earth. Birds chirped in the distance, and a small brook ran nearby, its waters sparkling in the afternoon sun. I jumped out of the car, inhaling the scent of the wilderness, feeling a rush of freedom and possibility. This was it, our first adventure, a chance to escape the mundane and create memories as a family. I imagined evenings around the fire, roasting marshmallows, telling stories, and laughing until our stomachs hurt. What I didn't know was that the memories we were about to make would be far more complicated and painful than I could ever have imagined. The first night at the campsite started like a dream. We pitched our tents under a canopy of tall pines, their needles rustling gently in the evening breeze. Jake ran ahead, eager to explore every corner of the campsite, while Mark helped me unpack the cooler and organize our gear. The golden glow of the sunset reflected off the nearby stream, and for a moment I allowed myself to believe this trip would be perfect. Exactly the escape we had all needed. But as darkness settled in and we gathered around the campfire, I began to notice little things that didn't quite sit right. Mark was unusually preoccupied with his phone. He kept checking it, stepping away to answer calls or send messages in hushed tones. Each time he returned, his smile seemed forced, almost absent. At first, I tried to ignore it, convincing myself he was just tired or distracted by work. But the feeling of unease grew steadily, gnawing at the back of my mind like a persistent shadow. Jake, oblivious to the tension, was mesmerized by the flames, roasting marshmallows and telling exaggerated stories of imaginary forest creatures. His laughter was contagious, and I clung to it as a reminder that all was not yet lost. But every time I glanced at Mark, I saw the subtle signs that something was off. The way his eyes darted nervously whenever his phone buzzed, the tightness in his jaw, the brief, guilty pauses in his speech. By the second day, the small suspicions began to accumulate. While I was hiking with Jake along the stream, I noticed Mark slipping away to a secluded spot, phone in hand, looking around as if he didn't want to be seen. I brushed it off as private work matters, but my intuition screamed otherwise. Later that evening, I saw a message accidentally left open on his phone. A brief conversation with a woman I had never met. My stomach churned, my heart thudding painfully in my chest. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself I must be overreacting, that maybe it wasn't what it seemed. But the gnawing suspicion refused to leave. The joy I had felt at the start of our trip was rapidly being replaced by a sense of dread. I realized with a sinking feeling that this trip, our supposed family adventure, was becoming a trap of secrets and lies. The man I had trusted completely was hiding something, and the first camping trip meant to bring us closer was revealing cracks I had never imagined existed in our marriage. The next morning, the crisp mountain air felt heavier than usual. I woke before sunrise, my mind restless, replaying the messages I had seen on Mark's phone. The cheerful excitement of the first day had vanished completely, replaced by a knot of anxiety and betrayal that tightened with every passing moment. Jake was still asleep in our tent, his soft breathing a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. I found Mark by the campfire, silently brewing coffee, staring into the flickering flames. For a fleeting second, he looked up and caught my gaze, and I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes. That small moment gave me the courage I needed. I took a deep breath and said, "Mark, we need to talk." My voice was steady, though my hands trembled slightly. He didn't respond immediately. He kept staring at the fire, avoiding my eyes, and my stomach twisted with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. "I saw the messages," I continued, my voice low but firm. "I know you've been talking to someone else. I can't ignore this." His hands tightened around the coffee mug, knuckles white, but he still didn't speak. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he muttered, I didn't mean for you to find out here. His words faltered, hanging uselessly in the cold morning air. I pressed on, my voice sharper now. "How long? How long has this been going on?" The silence was deafening, broken only by the gentle gurgle of the nearby stream. Mark's eyes finally met mine, filled with a mixture of shame and fear. He admitted everything, the secret meetings, the messages, the lies. My chest felt as if it had been hollowed out. Every word he spoke cut deeper than the last. And the world around me, the mountains, the forest, the chirping birds seemed suddenly irrelevant, like a backdrop to the destruction of trust I had built my life on. Jake stirred in the tent, sensing something was wrong. I went to him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead, forcing a small smile. "It's nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart. Just some adult problems." His innocent eyes searched mine, and the weight of Mark's betrayal hit even harder. The rest of the morning passed in tense silence. Mark avoided me, and I couldn't bear to look at him. The first camping trip, meant to be a joyful escape, had become a mirror reflecting our fractured relationship. I realized that some truths could not be softened, and some bonds, once broken, would never be the same. That morning, surrounded by nature's beauty, I understood that our lives had changed forever, and there was no going back. The last 2 days of our camping trip felt endless. The once inviting forest now seemed to close in around me, its silence echoing the emptiness inside my chest. Every rustle of leaves reminded me of the conversation by the fire out the moment my trust in Mark shattered. I tried to focus on Jake, forcing smiles and laughter to keep things normal for his sake. But inside I was unraveling. Mark made several attempts to talk, but I couldn't bring myself to listen. Each time he approached, I felt my body stiffen, my heart guarding itself against more pain. His apologies sounded hollow, like they were meant to ease his guilt rather than heal the wounds he had caused. I could see regret in his eyes, but regret wasn't enough. What was broken couldn't simply be repaired with words. Jake, in his innocent way, tried to bring us together. "Mom, Dad, come see the fish I caught," he shouted one afternoon, proudly holding a small silver trout. For a moment, Mark and I exchanged a glance, not of love, but of shared responsibility. We smiled for Jake, but the warmth between us had long vanished. I realized then that while Mark and I had lost something, Jake still deserved stability, honesty, and peace. That evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I took a long walk alone. The forest was quiet except for the sound of the wind moving through the trees. I thought about the life we had built, the laughter, the struggles, the promises we had made. How easily it all had been undone by a secret. I let the tears fall freely, each one washing away a fragment of the pain, leaving behind only determination. When I returned to the campsite, Mark was sitting near the fire, staring into the flames, the same flames that had once united us in warmth and now stood between us like a barrier. I sat down beside him, not as his wife, but as the mother of his child. "When we go home," I said softly, "things have to change. I won't live a lie." He nodded, eyes glistening with guilt, and for the first time, he didn't try to argue. As the stars appeared overhead, I lay in the tent beside Jake, listening to his even breathing. I realized that this trip had given me more than just heartbreak. It had given me clarity. Sometimes the wilderness strips away everything unnecessary, leaving only truth. And as painful as that truth was, it was what I needed to finally find my strength again.